We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our friends at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use the box at sign up for 10 points. And here we go.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very special edition of the Sports Box. I am Brian Attard, along with Mike Velarde, and a guest you should all know from 94.1 WIP in Philadelphia, Jack Fritz. Jack, welcome to the Sports Box, my friend. How are you this evening?
I am good. That was a super intense intro. I should like to say that I did not know I was coming on this podcast with a Rangers, Yankees, Cowboys fan. That was not a part of the question.
Normally we keep that like under wraps until like you're already on, and then you feel bad that you can't leave. So
and all of a sudden I hop on, you're wearing a Rangers hat. Not that I really care. I mean, it's all the Penguins for the Flyers apparently. So it's like, whatever. I just feel like I'm being ambushed, but it's okay. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be here.
Not at all. Mike, I'm sure is a 4-for-4 ally with you. So I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that over the course of the show, but definitely thank you for taking the time with us. We appreciate that.
That's how we lock our guests in. We don't tell them about Brian before we lock in.
No, it's a good strategy. It's a good strategy to have because most people say no. But I just was like, all right, sure, let's do it.
Ron Jaworski's like, is that a Cowboys banner? Who the hell? I'm like,
yeah, come on.
It is. So, I guess the good news for the Eagles is they didn't lose this weekend because they had a bye.
No.
But they currently have a lead in the worst division in the NFL. What's your take on this team for the second half? I know there are people that obviously we all live in the air. We talk to people, get their take. And it just seems like there's people that want them to go for it. They want them to win the division, get into the playoffs, and something might happen. You never know. Then there's people who, even after the Cowboys win last week, they're like, that really wasn't very convincing. That's a very bad Cowboys team. We should have really, played a lot better than that. What's your vibe right now? Like, where do you think that this is going to end up for this group?
So I think they stink, and they're definitely bad. Like, they're definitely a bad football team. But it's weird because they still have that little bit. I think they still have a little bit of that like pride and that kind of heart of a champion. I guess it's like the cliche quote. But when I watch them, it's just like I think they're a talented team, or I think they're not a very talented team that tries pretty hard. And like that's nice to have. But like today, for example, like on the show, we had a lot of callers calling in and thinking they're gonna go like 6-2 down the stretch here, or like 5-3, and I'm like. I mean, I appreciate the optimism, but I mean, we're an Evan Ingram drop away from losing to the Giants at home, and then the week after, I mean, they're down in the fourth quarter against a terrible Cowboys team. Like, I would love to be more optimistic on this team, and ultimately, like, Carson playing, or Carson, figuring it out a little bit and coming out of this is the most important thing. Like, they can make the playoffs, they can not make the playoffs. I mean, at this point, if they don't make the playoffs, it would be a huge disaster. But really, for me, it all comes down to Carson. If Carson's good and Carson comes out of this and Carson looks like the guy that we saw in December last year, it'll just quell a lot of people's and my fears about the quarterback. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to that. Like, I think Doug's pretty limited. I've been pretty disappointed in what Doug has done this year. Just like, you see these teams around the league, and like Mahomes is literally like running in the middle of getting the ball snapped to him, and like there's all crazy motion. And meanwhile, we're just like dropping Carson back 50 times. So yeah, like I think they're definitely a bad team that tries hard, and they'll win the NFC East because the NFC East is just horrible. But like if you're asking me if I would rather have an NFC East title or the 12th pick in the draft, like I'd much rather have the 12th pick in the draft. And especially, I don't know if you guys saw this today, but like they're voting tomorrow on reseeding the playoffs, where it's like, we're not even going to get a home playoff game anymore. The NFC East is so bad that it broke everyone's brains and said, no way this team deserves to have a home playoff game. Like, we're not going to sit idly by and let that happen. So, I would much rather have the pick, but this division's so dreadful that they're going to win it and have to go on the road and get blown out by some team. So just a fun year. But if Carson plays well, it's all that matters.
We have these discussions a lot within our group of friends and on the Sports Box. As a Rangers fan, the Rangers just won the draft lottery because they didn't they weren't supposed to make the playoffs, and the NHL changed the rules, and they did. But yeah, it's one of those things where, as a Cowboys fan, listen, I mean, this has crashed and burned worse than anybody could have thought it was going to for this team. So lose out. Who cares? Get a higher pick. You have holes everywhere. Go do that. I think for the Eagles, it's a deceptively old roster in certain spots. I think they need some offensive line help, need some D help. I mean, these are things that you can set yourself up for much better future years when you're not just trying to make a cosmetic postseason run that doesn't really get you anywhere.
Right, and the ultimate example of this is like, would I have rather gotten CeeDee Lamb last year, or would I rather have won or made the playoffs and let Carson get hurt and not even finish the playoff game? So like, everyone always talks about, you got to get Carson some playoff experience. It's like, well, what's going to happen when it gets to the playoffs in years from now? Is he going to forget how to play quarterback? Like, I would give me the talented players and let's figure it out. Let's not have this sham of hopefully like a 7-8-1 football team make the playoffs. And especially like, I don't want them thinking making the playoffs is a success. Like, everyone talks about how there hasn't been a back-to-back division winner since 2004. And I can't believe that this Eagles team's probably going to be the one that's going to do it. But it just, none of that stuff matters to me. And I hope that the Eagles don't view this as some kind of success as to, we made the playoffs and whatnot. We won the division, because ultimately, like, the season's already been a failure no matter if they make the playoffs or not.
Jack, thanks for joining the show this evening. I know you had a long afternoon on your show. I'm going to go where I think I know the answer, but I'm going to go there anyway. Ike Reese and you guys, big Carson Wentz guys. Jalen Hurts, second round pick this year.
Very fun.
Give me your feelings on that. And I'm going to show you this right now. Anthony Morella is a co-host on one of our other shows. He's on our network.
Unreal.
He's going to give you the Wentz stinks. Okay. So I'm going to take that off the screen right now.
Thank you.
And give me your thoughts on A, that pick in the second round. B, your thoughts on passing on trading up possibly for CeeDee Lamb or another guy. And then C, just your overall, perspective on maybe where they should have went with that pick. Just your overall thoughts on that draft.
Yeah, I think I said at the time, and I still believe it, like nothing's changed. Like, I think it was the worst pick in Eagles history. Like, it was such a pointless pick. It was like a pick that you make if you're a loaded roster and you can just have you have the ability to draft a backup quarterback in the second round. Like, it was, whether they can try to sell you whatever they want. I think it was a huge hedge on Carson. I think it was just a massive hedge. And like a couple things, I think that they're not over Russell Wilson. I think they view Jalen Hurts as like a Russell Wilson kind of player, and they passed him in 2012. They wanted him in 2012, and they didn't get him. And I think that's kind of haunted them to this day. And honestly, I think also last year, or not last year, but the year before, 2018, the Goddard draft, when they traded the Ravens Lamar Jackson. And I think a part of that still haunts them because they have this idea in their head that there's some like quarterback factor in that. And I know Lurie a couple of years ago, which is crazy. I mean, let's maybe develop the guy that is actually the guy you just paid $128 million to. Like, let's develop that guy before we worry about your factory. But I just think that, like, Lurie a couple of years ago said that they would draft a quarterback every year if they could. They took freaking Clayton Thorson in the 5th, and it was just like,
unbelievable,
cool, great, awesome, fun. And it's just such a pointless pick. It was such a pointless pick, and my idea at the time was like, why are we not focusing on getting the best talent around Carson and letting him succeed rather than betting against them, especially betting against them with a guy who we have no idea is good. Like, everyone talks about Jalen Hurts, like winner. He got benched at Bama and he lost at Oklahoma. Like, he won one game. He won the national championship on, like, it's hard. I don't take Alabama national championships that seriously. Like, he
got benched in the national championship game. At halftime.
He got benched in the national championship game. Like, can we just stop with the whole Jalen Hurts winner thing? So, like,
what about this, Jack? Worst pick: Jordan Love in Green Bay or Hurts?
So it's funny. It's funny because yes, the Jordan Love pick looks stupid, but like, you got this version of Aaron Rodgers out of it. So
true.
Right.
Meanwhile, Carson's like, I don't know, regressed massively after the Jalen Hurts pick. So at least like with the Jordan Love pick, you're getting this version of Aaron Rodgers, which is like prime Aaron Rodgers, and we're just, we're not getting that at all. But I didn't see the point of it then. I don't see the point of it now. And they keep trying to do these stupid plays where it's like, oh, let's bring Jalen Hurts in, and this is going to be fun and innovative. And it's like, listen, eventually you're going to have to let the guy throw more because everyone's just going to know that when he comes into a game, he's just going to run the ball, and it's going to be some gimmick. Like, they've thrown it twice with him, and it's worked well, and it does kind of jumpstart the offense a little bit. But like, why can't we get some, real talent around the guy and stop worrying about the injury history? Like, if he's going to get hurt, he's going to get hurt. You just have to get that through your head. Carson is a guy that's always trying to extend plays, make the big plays. And like, if you didn't want to pay him $128 million, then you shouldn't have paid him $128 million. But to not make the team as good as possible around him was insane. And like, they went on this whole talking tour after it of like, oh, well, actually, it's like, no, it's not well, actually, it's stupid and it's the hedge. So it was the worst pick in Eagles history. I still believe it. And I can't stand that he's here, and I would have tried to trade him at the deadline, try to get a second round pick back, because ultimately the best case scenario for Jalen Hurts is never playing. Like, the best case scenario for your second round pick is that he never plays. That's our genius strategy.
But there's so much to unpack just around the mindset, right? So I was of the belief after they won the Super Bowl that you obviously going to go with Carson Wentz. That should never have been a discussion. It's only a discussion in places like Philadelphia where, for whatever reason, the fans are always waiting for that second shoe to drop. They love the backup quarterback.
Well, we couldn't win a Super Bowl normally. We had to win it with a backup quarterback.
You take it, though. That's a Disney movie, and you never forget it, and that you don't apologize for it. Winning is winning. But it just felt like Carson was always going to be stunted the longer that Foles was here, just because of that that he's right behind you. The guy won a Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history, just hugest event. And then eventually he went away. What I really just, from an overall standpoint, number one, the prevailing theory is they could have traded 21 and 53 and gone to 17 and gotten with Atlanta and gotten CeeDee Lamb. So now it's like, well, Rager and Hurts cost you getting CeeDee Lamb. Not the shot against Rager either, but Lamb was considered, should have gone a lot higher. That's its own story. But then it's like, you bring in another guy to make the fans pine to put him in. Like, it's never just, this is Carson's job, for better or for worse, till death do us part, this is the way we're going to go. Like, they always seem to have this strange insurance policy. And I just don't think that's good for him. Like, I think when you're constantly like worried that like, oh man, if I get hurt, I'm gonna get benched, or I'm not gonna, this guy's gonna take my job, or that everybody else wants this other person in instead of me. Like, it's it's just so difficult to just focus on football at that point.
Well, yeah, and especially after the December Carson just had. I mean, like you're drafting a guy in the second round after your quarterback that you paid to be your franchise quarterback just went 4-0 in December and carry your team to the playoffs, throwing to like you.
Yeah, right.
Throwing to you. And
my match rating is low, so it's. Yeah.
And it's like seriously, in the second round we're taking a guy after I just did this. You're still worried about me? I'm like, you're right. I mean, all this stuff definitely affects Carson. Like he can play off that. I don't read anything, but I mean, you heard his quotes after they won the Super Bowl. He was pissed he wasn't out there. He was like, "This is my team. This is what I did. I got us here." And he's obviously a good teammate. I mean, no matter what the reports say, like I think Carson's a good teammate. I think he cares about his teammates and guys like him. But it's just, and honestly, I'm glad he's upset about the Super Bowl because ultimately that's what I want in a competitor. I want a guy that's gonna, be like, no, that was my Super Bowl. I did all the work. And like, even if you remember last year in that Falcons game in week 3, they were down in Atlanta, and like McCown comes in for a series, and I think Carson could just tell that everyone back in Philly is like, offense is moving better. Like, let's just play it out. And Carson's like, no, I'm coming back in the game because he could see the quarterback controversy kind of brewing. And then Josh McCown tore his hamstring in a playoff game, and that was over. But yeah, I think it definitely affected his mindset, and I just don't know why they gave him the most guaranteed money in NFL history at the time, and to not do everything in their power to build the best team possible around him, and instead hedging in picking Jalen Hurts, I continue to think is insane.
Jack, I just find it hard to believe that going into the draft that the Eagles front office thinks to themselves, okay, we have Deshaun Jackson, he's going to stay healthy for this whole year. Like, come on, do we really think that was going to happen? Now listen. Rager coming into the draft, they thought very highly of him. They knew with that second round pick that they were taking Hurts. They had to have known that because they knew he was going to be there, and they knew that they were going to take him. So they knew that they didn't want to trade that pick to go up to move up to get CeeDee Lamb. So they were content with sitting there. They also were content with taking Rager at that spot. So they had their plan in place. Yeah. So. But sitting there thinking that, in my opinion, is dumb by them, because to sit there and say to themselves, okay, we're going to settle with Deshaun Jackson as our number one receiver, it's just mind-boggling to me. You knew he was going to get hurt. He didn't even make it past the first game this year. It's unbelievable. And then you're sitting here with your second option as almost the same exact team you had last year at wide receiver. It's just mind-boggling.
Well, and like it's so funny. Obviously they draft Rager in the first round. He gets hurt. I think Rager's going to be good. I don't know. When I watch him, I see an actual what an NFL receiver looks like in this day and age. He's fast. He's strong. Seems to catch most balls thrown his way. Seems to be open a lot. So I like Rager. But then there's no one better in the NFL at overcorrecting than the Eagles. Like, they overcorrect everything. I mean, so what was the main problem with last year's team? Everyone's complaining about, oh, they're not fast enough. They're not explosive enough. And Howie goes out and he drafts John Hightower and Quez Watkins, 2 fast guys. Doesn't check and see if they can catch anything or track a deep ball, but they're fast. So that's all that matters. And it's just like, honestly, where would this team be if Travis Fulgham didn't come out of nowhere, who they cut 2 times? Like Travis Fulgham has been such a godsend to this team. Like, if they didn't find Travis Fulgham, your starting receivers are John Hightower and Quez Watkins, and Jalen Reagor was hurt at the time, so no one there. Richard Rodgers, I guess, would be Jason Kroom, Hakeem Butler. Like, if they didn't find, Jason Kroom one for one with a touchdown. So let's respect greatness around here. But it's like, people can be down on Carson, but if name another team that has done a worse job of building around a guy that was an MVP caliber player in 2017, and he won't find it.
See, for me, we had these, again, we talk about this a lot. I am not a Dak guy. To me, I think Carson has done more with less, and Dak has done less with more. That the surrounding cast, when everybody's healthy around Dak Prescott, is so much better than the surrounding cast around Carson Wentz. That these comparisons just make no sense. Like you said, he's out there the last 4 games of last year throwing balls to me, you, and Mike, and they're winning. Dak Prescott has elite talent all around him, and they're 8-8. So it's like, if these two people were the exact same, the results for Dak should be better, but they're not. So the fact that Wentz is doing what he's doing with all respect, the slop around him, I think speaks more to Wentz's capability. But having said all that, we haven't really seen him be that MVP since Frank Reich left. Yep. So those not that he's lighting the world on fire in Indy, but those questions are always there. Is how much of what's going on in Philadelphia, is it coaching? Is it the GM? Or is it Carson? You have people that, are in each one of those camps. I don't think they draft very well. DK Metcalf, here you go. But at the same time, I don't think Doug's done a whole lot since the Super Bowl that would give me confidence that if you blow Carson out of here, because you took Jalen Hurts in round 2 at 53, that all of a sudden the trajectory is going to change.
Well, I just feel like with Doug, there hasn't been any adjusting. I mean, I don't think he's done the best job to try to get the most out of Carson. Like when Foles came in 2017, it was like, okay, he's struggling. How can we get this out of him? And they found the RPO thing, and it rode them to a Super Bowl. I mean, Foles was unbelievable, and I don't think he's done that with Carson. I mean, it shouldn't be this hard to make Carson look good. I mean, everyone knows he's at his best when he's out of the pocket, moving around, and getting on the run. Because ultimately, when he's in the pocket, he's just not that accurate. He's not an accurate quarterback within the pocket. He's way better when the play kind of breaks down and he can just go be athletic and just stop thinking and just go be Carson Wentz and be, making plays on the run. And they've really only got him out of the pocket once this year. It was the Niners game. I mean, the Niners game was the only time I ever saw them really move the pocket on a consistent basis. And Carson was pretty good that game. So I just I haven't seen the same Doug since 2017. The offense feels stale, and it feels like he just wants this quarter. I think Doug likes a quarterback like a Nick Foles, like a Josh McCown, who will just sit there and run the system. He'll just drop back. He'll hit the guys in the open spots and just let this thing go. And Carson's just a guy that you kind of build the offense around. You don't make him run your offense. I think they're trying to pigeonhole Carson as being this pocket quarterback, and that's just not who he is. I mean, that's why Ike had to start to let the Bronco buck movement, because all last offseason it was like, we're going to keep him in the pocket and we're not going to let him get out of the pocket. And then he was horrible inside the pocket, and they let him get outside the pocket, and he turned into, oh, there's Carson Wentz again. So yeah, I think they're trying to keep him contained because they're worried about the health stuff and they don't want him to continually get hurt. Whereas ultimately, if he gets hurt, he gets hurt, but his play is not good enough to be within the pocket. So you got to just kind of let him go. You just got to let him go. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. And don't draft a quarterback in the second round. Maybe use that on a lineman. That would be nice.
Yeah. I made that comment. I'm sure there were some linemen there at 53 that could really help right now.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And here's the other most ridiculous part about the Hurts pick is, I think they knew Andre Dillard couldn't play, and they still were just like, oh, sweet, let's take a quarterback in the second round. Meanwhile, their first round pick from the year before is a bust. Such a bad pick. But I just think I think Doug just wants a guy who will drop back and find the open guys and whatnot. And Carson's just not that kind of guy. The one part of that San Lapuito article was like him not wanting to run the Foles stuff, and I really believe that. I don't think he wants to run the Foles stuff. I would think he just wants to kind of freewheel it and go and just go be Carson and want to be Brett Favre kind of guy.
Right.
I'm going to switch gears right now, Jack. I love following your Twitter feeds.
Thank you.
Right. It's some of the most very sarcastic to the point tweets, but you have the fans' voice within your own. So I'm going to switch gears to the Phillies, because I'm going to start with your first tweet that you put out about Didi and his year of arbitration that they're not picking up, which is an absolute joke within itself. So the Didi tweet that you tweeted out was, You said it should be very simple. If he takes it the 1 year and then Stott is ready. If he doesn't, you get a comp pick for it. What an embarrassment. So pretty much, why can these so-called professional geniuses of the front office, in my opinion, not get this right? Why is this so hard? Like, can you just shed some light on this for us?
This all comes down to money. I mean, they were terrified Didi would take an $18 million deal. I mean, in all seriousness, it comes down to they don't want to spend any money. I think that all things being equal, they would like to have offered Didi the contract. And it's such a freaking no-brainer for this team because, like, Stott, I think Stott's going to be a good player. But I think he's also a year away. I mean, he didn't have minor league baseball this year. I mean, he was up at Lehigh Valley and apparently was looking really good up at Lehigh Valley and was down in the instructional league this fall. But, I think he's still a year away from being ready to take down that position. And, like, Didi was a really consistent player last year. I mean, brought really solid defense, had good range. The bat, I mean, usually in Didi's career, he's very up and down. He would be super hot for a little bit. I mean, you're a Yankees fan, you would know. But, like, Didi would be super hot, best hitter on the planet, and then he'd just go into a slump. And this year, he never really slumped. He was just always good. And it's just such a shame that this is where we're at with the Phillies, where it's $18 million is too much of a burden on a team that, it had the 5th highest payroll in baseball last year, and they're so worried about losing all this money. It should have been very simple. It was a 1 year deal. If he rejects it and gets a multi-year deal elsewhere, then you get a draft pick back. But now they're not going to have that opportunity to get a draft pick back and hopefully help, build this team and get some young talent here. Like, you get a free draft pick if a guy does not take your offer. That's so easy. But the fear of him taking a 1 year, $18 million deal was too much for them. And it's a really bad place to be in as a Phillies fan because, listen, man, it's been 9 years. Like, it's been 9 years since they made the postseason. And they got close last year. It was embarrassing they didn't make it, but they got close last year. And they're just willfully just saying, no, we're not going to try to field the best team possible next year. It's awful, but, not much we can do about it.
To that point, we had Mitch Williams on, and he said, look, they're not going to sign Real Muto. They're crying poor. They have no money. And, we're just not that far removed from when they said they're going to go spend stupid money. But as I've said a couple of times, stupid money means different things to different people. And your interpretation of it and their interpretation of it are obviously two different things. To me, and I say this a lot about, everybody who wants to come at me because the Yankees spend money. I want the Yankees to spend money. It ain't my money. So the idea that everybody hates the Yankees until they want their team to be like the Yankees and just write checks, it really just makes no sense that you would go out and spend all of this money on Bryce Harper and then not do your basic due diligence to surround him with anybody else that can help him. And if I'm Bryce Harper, listen, I know I'm signed here for, probably till, the end of the world, but it's like, you got to think about, like, I made that commitment. I'm not really getting the love back right now. He's there all the time, hitting it for Real Muto. He's obviously not going to be here. It sure seems like.
That's Jack's boy. Be careful.
Say what?
That's Jack's boy.
No, I think it's a mistake. We'll talk about that. But I'm like, they let go of an elite pitching prospect to go get this guy. And it's like, it's one of those things where, like, okay, now you have to sign him because that's kind of like what you intimated you were going to do when you made this trade. Don't come to me and say, well, we had 2 years of control and he's had a really good 2 years. Yeah, you didn't win jack. You didn't win anything. You didn't go to the playoffs. So it's like, you can't, like, rest your hat on that. To me, it doesn't make any sense. And honestly, do you think that Bryce Harper's having any second thoughts right now?
I mean, I would hope he would be. I mean, he wouldn't be the competitor that I thought he was if he wasn't having some second thoughts. And I think he's happy being here. But, and I think the Bryce thing actually hasn't been brought up enough when it comes to talking about where the Phillies are, is because, like, Middleton basically promised him that he's going to do whatever it takes to win. And now, I mean, he's basically going back on his word. He's basically saying, that was until this happened. And it's the thing that's so frustrating is, like, you mentioned the Yankees, and apparently they're losing $437 million this year. Or not losing, it's just the money that they aren't generating. So calm down with the whole like we're losing $437 million. Like, no, you're not. You're just not making that much money this year. And they're still going out, and they're probably going to re-sign DJ. And like they have moves that have to be made. They're not going to sit out of free agency this offseason because of this. And that's $300 more million than the Phillies are projected to lose this offseason, but they're going to sit out the entire thing because of this. And the Mets are also lost more money than them this year. So they're just using this as just a massive excuse. And like, if I'm Bryce, I'm like, why am I here? I mean, because ultimately you're wasting Bryce Harper's prime. I mean, they've effectively wasted 2 years of Bryce Harper's prime. And, age 27 is supposed to be a baseball player's peak. And, in the 90s, it was obviously longer because of, what was going on in the 90s. But
Sure. Yeah.
In today's game, 27 is supposed to be these guys' peaks. And they're wasting prime Bryce Harper years so that by the next time they're ready to seriously compete, he's probably going to be in his 30s. And it's just it's like the Giants drafting Saquon number 2 overall or 3 overall or whatever. And it's like cool. By the time that we're ready to compete, he's going to be done. It's like, what are we doing here?
I can't agree more. I hated the pick for them. I hated it for them. I liked them, but I hated it for them. It made no sense.
Oh, he's a great player. It was just pointless. It's just a bad allocation of resources. And to give up Pedro Martinez 2.0 and just watching him flourish and turn into like everyone in baseball is raving about Sixto Sanchez. That was our guy. I remember reading stories about Sixto, and I was like, I can't wait. I just can't wait for this guy to get up here.
So then why is it a no-brainer not to sign this guy? I don't understand it.
Because they're so obsessed with correctly reading the market. Well, no, I think it all comes down to reading the market. Remember the Arrieta thing, they were like, oh, we'll just sit it out because he's not going to get as much as he thinks, and then we'll steal him for 3 years, $75 million. Absolute dynamite steal. Way to be on top of things.
That was actually stupid money. That was pretty stupid.
It was very stupid money. Same thing with Machado. They talked about how he exceeded their evaluations. They didn't think Harper was going to get as much AAV as was out there. They hang their hats on being able to correctly read the market, and I think, I think that they think JT is not going to get as much as they think, and they don't want to have to overpay for the guy. I kind of agree with them. There are stories that are coming out of $200 million. It's like, dude, JT, you're not sniffing $200 million. I would have offered him 125 and just been good there. And I think he thinks he's going to get more than that. And I think the Phillies are betting that they don't want to have to overpay, and they don't want to overpay. They don't want to bid against themselves. I mean, that was the Harper thing too. They didn't want to bid against themselves, and they ultimately were kind of bidding against themselves. Even the Giants kind of got in there, but I don't think they want to bid against themselves. And they think that JT means more to them than other teams around baseball, which I'm pretty sure is flawed given what Stephen Cohen's already done. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just think that they viewed it as, we're going to be able to get this guy at a better deal than what he's asking for, and we're smarter than everyone else. And hopefully they're right. I mean, hopefully they're right. I don't want to give him, $150 million plus. Losing Sixto has already happened. You can't go back and redo the trade. You can't sink the whole rest of your franchise because you lost Sixto. I mean, I would like a market fair deal. But that's my read on it.
But you look at the division right now, the NL East. It's I think every other team, you can make a cogent cases to be excited about something. The Nationals are not that far removed from winning the whole thing. Braves, one of the best young teams in baseball. The Mets have a new owner who's firing everybody and ready to write checks. And the Marlins made the playoffs last year. Who the hell saw that come? And it's there's just excitement everywhere else. And I just think in the Philadelphia market, you can't approach it like you're the Oakland Athletics Mets Moneyball. I don't think that sells here.
Well, I mean, especially after.
That's why I kind of want to get to that with Jack as well. I want to follow up on Brian's question. You actually had another tweet that said the Sixers hired Morey and Andy McPhail, really tried to pull the who would want to uproot themselves during a pandemic line today, get him out of here. How much do you dislike Andy McPhail for saying that? And I know that you said about the whole blank check to hire Eric Neander. So where do you what is your stance on that? I know you want Eric Neander bad. I know you want him bad. So follow up with Brian's question and go to mine too.
Well, McPhail's the worst. He's so bad for modern baseball. He has absolutely no energy, and it's like, you're trying to sell his fan base on something like hope or whatnot after another 500 year and whatnot. We have a top 5 payroll in the sport, and like this guy just goes out there and is like, "Oh, what was me? We didn't go as well as we had hoped last year, and actually we're not as bad as drafting as you guys like to make it out to be." And like to utter the sentence like, "Who wants to uproot during a pandemic?" While not only the Sixers hired Daryl Morey, and they hired Doug Rivers, they hired all these coaching staffs, and they're having people in the building all the time. And then the Angels have interviewed 13 people for their general manager spot. It's like, are you guys kidding me? It's like they just don't go outside or read anything or understand where people are at. Like, people are uprooting during the pandemic all the time. They're so worried about not being able to totally tell if a guy is smart during a Zoom call. It's like, you can tell. You can tell. It's not that hard. And also,
it's a dumb excuse.
Like Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey are having dinner together in New York City. You can't go out for dinner. You can go out places. You can go out and have a nice little sit down chat and figure out about a guy. But like, are they gonna interview anyone? I don't know. And it's like McPhail's here. His 2 boys, Klentak and Ned Rice, are still here. Mm-hmm. And you're telling me that if Ned Rice, who's the interim GM, who's never done this before, is going to get stuck this year and going to try to figure out what he wants to do, he's not going to call Matt Klentak and be like, "Hey, what would you do in this situation?" And then he's going to give his terrible Matt Klentak advice. Like, nothing's changed.
They don't want to fire him because they're paying him still, so they don't want to fire him.
Yeah, exactly. It ultimately comes down to, they don't want to pay him. They don't want to pay them to stay home. They don't want to pay them to lead the organization. Right. And we'll
reassign you. We'll reassign you because we still have to pay you.
Yeah, my optimistic view, and I generally lean optimistic with the Phillies because, like, I don't know, I have like a blind spot, and like I love them, right? I love the Phillies, and I just want them to be good because baseball is the best. And my optimistic view is that they're sitting out for Theo, and next year they'll go after Theo and give him a part of the team. And they'll be the only major market team opening with an opening, and Theo can come in and kind of be their Daryl Morey. I think Theo's gotten a tad overrated in the last couple of years, but I mean, it's a godsend compared to what we're looking at right now. So
he still turns organizations around fairly quickly.
He does. He knows how to build. Maintaining is not his strong suit, but I think he's getting better at that.
Did it with Chicago.
Right. I mean, what is it? 200 years of courage.
Quickly too.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think Theo's in the works here, and I think that's their goal. But I think there's a guy in Eric Neander who's better than Theo, and all it would cost him is money. I mean, I think Morey got about $10 million a year.
That's what the rumor is.
Right. So, I mean, that's basically what Neander would be. It'd be 5 years, $50 million, and just get him up here and let him go to work. I mean, the Rays are like one of 3 teams ever to be in the World Series and have the number 1 ranked farm system. I mean, how sweet would that be?
And a small payroll.
And like a $65 million payroll.
Yeah. Don't remind me. I'm still not really happy about it.
I know. I mean, they're so loaded. It's just, I want that here. I mean, like you see what the Dodgers did, and it would basically be building the Dodgers East. You would have the big payroll. You can spend your $200 million and have a top 5 payroll, but also have waves and waves of talent behind it. And it's just, signing Bryce Harper is great, but like having a good, stable, well-functioning front office is more important. Like, if you ask me if I would rather have Eric Neander or Bryce Harper, I'd much rather have Bryce Harper. I'd much rather have Eric Neander. Like, it's just, it's all about having a good organization. And it's like, baseball is one of those sports where one guy doesn't matter. I mean, like, Trout's the best player maybe of all time, and he's played in 2 playoff games. Right. So I would love for them to just do whatever it takes and get Neander in here. I'm not exactly feeling it at the moment.
Do you think they put a lot of eggs in the we're getting rid of Kapler basket? Like that was going to solve all their problems? Because that was like, the fan mentality was there a year ago. Oh, if Kapler's not there, they win 10 more games. They win the division and who knows what happens. And then he goes over to San Francisco, who was supposed to be like the worst team in baseball. All of a sudden they're competitive. Joe Girardi comes in, who I know very well, with a couple of Yankees there to kind of put that Yankee way there. And then they have the worst bullpen in the history of the sport. So it's like, I don't know if they thought that just by, addition by subtraction, get Kapler out, put a competent to them manager in, that was going to solve a lot of the problems, and it just didn't happen that way.
Well, I mean, I hope they learned their lesson. I mean, I think they thought that Joe Girardi was going to be some kind of massive upgrade of, it's going to be the equivalent of adding a 5 or 6 win player, which is insanity.
That's what they thought. Without changing the bullpen, let's put it that way.
Right. And dude, managers are great, sure, but they don't matter that much. I mean, the Gabe Kapler stuff was insane. He's just a guy that uses numbers and is aggressive and whatnot. And sure, he's weird and whatnot. I'm not sure guys likes playing for him. But managers just don't matter. They just don't matter as much as people like to make it out to be. And you saw what happened with Gabe this year. I don't even know if that was Gabe. More so, I think Farhan's just incredible at his job. Because ultimately it comes down to the front office. If the front office is good at their jobs and can find talent, what does a manager really do? He doesn't really do that much. He kind of sets the culture. And I think Girardi did a good job with that this year. But ultimately, they weren't good because their talent wasn't good. And I hope that the Phillies recognize that managers don't matter that much. And
ask Blake Snell.
I was going to say, the manager matters.
Yeah. When he gets to that level.
Just don't screw this up.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that was just so classic over managing.
What are you doing? 6 innings? Come on, man. What are you doing?
Well,
was that a real stat that he hasn't pitched past the 6th inning this year? Blake Snell?
Yeah. I don't think I don't think so. I don't think he's
past 5 1/3 or past 5 2/3. He hasn't pitched. That's amazing for a guy who won the Cy Young Award 2 years ago. That's amazing.
Yeah, I owned him in fantasy this year, and it was like, oh, sweet, another 5 innings for Blake Snell. He strikes out 10 guys, and it's whatever. And that's a shame of it. Is what I think is great about baseball and great about postseason baseball is the pitching matchups. Starters going up against each other, and now it's oh, sweet, it's Blake Snell versus Tony Gonsolin, the opener for the Dodgers, and it's you remember back to 2010 where it was Halliday versus Lincecum, and it's that's a matchup that everyone around the country is oh, I can't wait to see those two battle it out, and you just don't see that anymore in the game, and I think it really hurts it.
Yeah,
I'm trying to load up the meme that we had in regards. Here it is.
Yeah, well, I saw that meme a lot when Gabe Kapler was here. I mean, everyone was every time he did something marginally wrong, everyone's he doesn't know what he's doing. Told you. At Joe Giglio, at Jack Fritz, you guys don't know what you're
So,
just kind of going through the free agent list for this year. I kind of spin both ways of signing Real Muto, not signing Real Muto. What should they do? $200 million on a catcher. I really am kind of mixed day in and day out of if they should sign him, what's best for the team. I hear George Springer's name. What do they do? Honestly, I don't think they need another $200 million outfielder or whatever the case is. They need a bullpen. They need pitching. I mean, Arrieta's gone, finally. I think David Robertson's probably on his way out. Tommy Hunter's on his way out. They have guys on their way out, which is great. Okay, they need to get younger. Eflin looks like he's finally turning the corner into a good pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that they need? Let's say they don't sign Real Muto, and let's say they do have that $200 million that they are not going to spend on him. Where do they need to spend that money?
Well, ultimately, talent wins, right? And if they don't sign him, I would still go after Springer. I would still give him $100+ million. I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to try hard for JT. I think they're going to offer him their version of whatever it takes, which is, I don't know, 140, 140.
Does Cohen just open up his wallet and just here you go?
I mean, he might. Honestly, like, if Cohen wants you to spend money on players, cool. Go spend money on old free agents and never win. If Cohen was smart, he would just start investing everything into player development and hire a super good general manager and kind of build an infrastructure of winning. If Cohen goes out and just starts buying free agents, I'll take it. But my fear is he's just going to spend all kinds of money on like research. Right. I mean, like the actually smart things that teams are doing. I mean, the Dodgers don't spend a ton of money every year. They just develop and find hidden gems. But like ultimately, I think a Springer, Bohm, Harper is a really good three. The problem is like they have so many holes. They have so many holes. They don't have a general manager. They have a president that is begging to be removed. They have to spend money there. Then they have to worry about the rest of the team. They don't have a catcher unless you want 100 or 130 games of Andrew Knapp, which sounds awful. They don't have a short.
How much has Reese Hoskins regressed, in your opinion?
Reese, he was fine until he got hurt. I mean,
he was fine, but he was batting sub 200 for a while.
Yeah. It was awful. But he started. It's kind of sucks for Reese because I actually thought that was the best he had looked since, the first half of 2019.
Yeah.
And the second half obviously cratered and it translated over to this year. But yeah, he's definitely taken a step back. But I was excited about what I was seeing from Reese before he broke the wrist, and if you could have him back to where he was before he got hurt, and then boom.
Harper. What about Kingery? What's Kingery? What's his deal?
No idea.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you give a guy 25 mil before he even touches the field, and he looks great his rookie year, and then what's going on?
Well, at least we can dispel the whole. Well, he's got to lock in at second base. He's has to play second base.
Maybe he is a super utility guy.
Yeah. Honestly, I think he got messed up. I think him and Hoskins the most got hurt by the previous regime. John Maley. I thought John Maley was a disaster. Just from the standpoint of always going for the big inning, always trying to launch everything. I think they got so obsessed with trying to launch and trying to take balls out of the ballpark that it got away from what those guys are good at. Like Hoskins, his whole minor league career was a guy that would hit with power to all fields. And then, he gets up here 2017, has the nice little stretch. And then as soon as anything kind of started going wrong with him, he started to pull everything. He's yanking balls in the outside corner down the third baseline. It's like, what are we doing?
Yep.
And then Kingery, same kind of thing. Like Kingery should be a 280 to 300 hitter that's like hitting, gaps. And he was trying to be this like 25 homer guy. It's like, you're not a 25 homer guy. You already got paid. Go back to being the guy we saw in the minor leagues, which was an elite level second baseman. So I think the previous regime hurt those guys the most. And I think they slowly started coming out of it. And I think if we saw it over 162, it would have been a much different story. But in the shortened season, like it was just so hard to evaluate, except for the bullpen. Bullpen, you could definitely evaluate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was just, I mean, like I said, I thought everybody just got so excited that, they thought the difference was going to be made to the manager, and all of a sudden everything that ailed this team wasn't going to be there anymore. And then when it didn't materialize, I mean, it just felt like the wheels fell off. And I don't know I don't think they're going to spend the money on anybody. And Mitch kind of said that when he was on our show. He said, I think they're going to cry poor right now. They're not making any money, and they're not going to spend it. And I think that they're in a division with, as you mentioned, a billionaire buying his childhood team. I mean, if you put yourself in that scenario, right, you have all the money in the world and you buy the team you grew up loving, like you're going to do everything possible for that team to win. And that's the antithesis of what you think Phillies ownership is doing now. Like, it just doesn't feel like they have that kind of a commitment, whether that's big name free agents or investing in player development. Like, you don't get the vibe that like they really want to invest in the product in either direction.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned a Phillies fan, potentially buying the team and being the owner. Well, we have that, and it hasn't exactly worked out that way.
Right.
But yeah, I don't have any faith that they're going to make, any kind of big time splashes. Like, I think they're going to wait until January, February, and then try to steal guys on like 1 year deals, like a Charlie Morton on like a 1 year, $8 million deal or something like that. And then try to just kind of steal guys that have been in a market that is not exactly catering to them. And then maybe in 2021 they go out and get Theo, and that's just where my head is at. I don't feel super confident any of that's going to happen. But yeah, it's not a fun time. It's not a fun time. They're going to sit this one out this offseason. They have invested in player development a little bit more, but honestly, I'm worried they might go away from it because they view it as like, analytics are bad. Whereas the Rays and the Dodgers were just in the World Series, and they're two of the most analytically driven teams out there. I'd like to see them actually go more all in on player development and that kind of stuff. But I don't know. It's not a great time.
Switching topics to the Sixers. Thoughts on Ben Simmons? I mean, I keep seeing videos of him shooting threes.
Hey, it's that time of the year.
It's that time of the year.
Off-season Ben.
Off-season Ben shooting threes.
All the time. He's going to knock them down all the time in the games.
Of course. I mean, can we do an over-under on how many threes he's going to shoot? 3? Is he going to shoot 3 this year? Who knows?
Every year.
Expectations this year, I guess, for him, Joel, with Doc.
They're both going to be here?
I believe so. I mean,
I think they'll both be here for the year.
Jack, do you think that Morey goes out and tries to get Harden? Do you think that they try and make a big splash? What's your expectations?
Well, what's so funny about the NBA is, I mean, the draft's next week. They have like a week of free agency, and the season just starts December 22nd. Yeah, like, right. I don't know what Daryl Morey can do. Honestly, I think it would be dumb to trade either one of those guys at this point. I think Brett got scapegoated a good amount, but also I think we all realized by the end he clearly wasn't the guy. And like at least giving them Doc Rivers gives them a chance. I think Doc.
Brett had enough time, though, I think. Time was up.
Exactly. I mean, the 3-1 leads are the 3-1 leads. But listen, if the Sixers blow a 3-1 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals, like, I'll take it. I mean, if we get to that point with this team, like, I'll take it. It sounds I'd love to see a nice blown 3-1 lead.
Get me to the Eastern Conference Finals at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I think if Doc and Daryl can't make these two work together, then I'm fine. Trade him away, figure it out from there, choose your guy and build around him. Because ultimately, like, if you build around Ben, it's like a way different team than you build around Joel. You have to almost have a take. Who do you believe is going to be the guy that you can bank on long term to be the franchise player? Do you bank on the next 4 years of Joel Embiid where he's at his peak of his powers, or do you bank on the 10 years of Ben Simmons where he should be healthy and all that? So yeah, I think Morey's going to wait a year and then decide. Honestly, a win this offseason is trading Horford or Tobias and finding a way out of those contracts. And I mean, Daryl's the guy that could be able to do it. I mean, I was really down on the Sixers. Like I was kind of out. I was a big process guy. I loved Hinkie, and I just felt like they got dumb and they turned into a dumb organization. And I didn't really care about the Sixers last year, and I felt like there was no plan and they were almost rudderless. And now that Morey's here, like it's almost like I'm getting excited about the Sixers again because he's like a talkative Hinkie. I mean, Hinkie was a genius. And Morey's basically just a more talkative Sam Hinkie. So I'm excited.
He looks like ESP.
He does look like ESP. ESP as he gets older and fatter. Yeah, that's exactly where he's going to end up.
Do you think they waited too long though with Brett? Like again, I'm not a fan of these teams, but from the outside looking in, like I saw some correlations in between Brett Brown and the Sixers, Pete Mackanin with the Phillies, and Dave Haxtell with the Flyers. That it was like this transitional coach that you put in there, not because you were trying to like quote unquote tank. I mean, the Sixers actually were, but you weren't like overtly doing it. But it's just a guy that was not going to be the coach when you got to the point when the players that you were tanking for and accumulating were actually going to play for you. So you saw the Phillies move on. They moved on twice now. You saw the Flyers move on to Alain Vigneault, who I know very well, obviously. Like it has that bit of a feel that's happening with the Sixers, but it also feels like it's a year or two late at the same time. It's like a weird dichotomy that this should have been done before, but maybe, to be fair, had they done that, they don't have Doc Rivers because Doc Rivers has a job somewhere.
But would you rather have Doc Rivers or Jimmy Butler? I mean,
that's a fair point.
Ultimately, like they chose Brett Brown and Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler. And at the time, they took the Raptors to a Game 7. The Kawhi shot happened, all that fun stuff. Ben's a 23-year-old all-star. Like, it's hard to move on from that guy. Jimmy doesn't like playing for Brett. Obviously that hurts, but yeah, I think it was probably a year too late, but I think that's also hindsight. Joel and Ben and this whole thing has kind of, developed under Brett, and I think they wanted to see if he could kind of ride it out for one more year. You got close this time. Let's run it back and see what we got. And ultimately, they signed Al Horford, which is awful. And I don't know what coach was winning with that roster last year. So having Doc here is massive. Might have been a blessing in disguise, but I would rather have Jimmy Butler than Doc Rivers. I would rather have Jimmy Butler than any coach. So it probably was a year too late.
Yeah, I felt from maybe even the beginning of last year that Brett Brown just was not the answer. I just felt like things were too stale. It was almost like Andy Reid. I just felt like the end was the end for each one of those guys. Andy Reid, great coach, loved him. I absolutely loved him. He was a winner, but it was his time to go. Brett Brown, on the other hand, I felt he was a winner, but he just couldn't get over the hump. He was a playoff coach, but you knew they weren't going to go anywhere with him. And I just felt like he was stale. He couldn't get a lot out of his players, and that was it at the time. There, like you said, there is a sense of excitement now. Doc Rivers is there. Daryl Morey's there. Maybe this will be a spark for Ben Simmons. Joel looks like he's excited. Maybe he won't come in fat this year. Who knows what's going on? But like you said, you have Josh Richardson there. Still, you have Horford there with a fat contract. Hopefully Morey could do something with those two guys. I don't know. That's going to be tough, though. Do you still start Horford with that contract? Are you going to leave a guy who's making that much money on the bench? What do you do? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, but ultimately, I'm glad they got the right guy to try to make it happen.
Yeah.
Doc's again, like I said earlier, if Doc can't figure out where they're at, I'm cool with kind of blowing the whole thing up, So I just think they're in a good spot, and sure, they have super bloated contracts and they're in the luxury tax, but at least they're in the luxury tax, and at least unlike our baseball team. But it feels good that there's a nice little rejuvenation, and it's nice that I think Morey's going to shake things up. The great part about Morey was that he was the one guy that challenged those Warriors teams. Everyone kind of conceded that it's going to be the Warriors and the Cavs, and Morey said, I'm going to try to go for it. And he's going to be aggressive. And, he traded for Russell Westbrook last year and tried to pair him with Harden. And he traded for CP3 the year before. He's always being aggressive, trying to make moves. And I just think it's going to be fun as a Sixers fan just to see kind of what he has up his sleeve.
In a transition to the last team for the Flyers, if you had to say who is the closest between the winner teams, between the Flyers and the Sixers, to winning a championship, who would you say that is? In my opinion, as a primary hockey guy, I still think it's the Sixers, because in the NBA, you get one player, you're off to the finals. It's much more one player can be much more impactful in basketball than in hockey. Not to denigrate anything that the Flyers have done. I think that they're fine, but I think they're in a really weird, I don't want to use the word purgatory, but they don't really have the direction that I think a team like that should, in that they never. So speaking from example, right? The Rangers, when they went into their rebuild, they sold off a lot of their older guys. They went after draft picks and they built this team. And now their farm system is the talk of the league. And they look like in a year or two, they're going to be back, doing well. For the Flyers, when the whole Hextall thing, when he was, moved through and let go because he didn't, go all in, and all they traded was Shen, they never really sold off. Then Giroux is still here. Voracek is still here. I think Shen, they acquiesced and let them move him for the picks that he got. It feels like they're just kind of doing a little bit of this. They're not all in because they're not selling things off, but they're not tanking either, obviously, nor should they. They shouldn't. But I feel as though the Sixers are closer. Just your thought on that.
I mean, if you asked me this, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, I'd say it's not even worth having a discussion. So it's nice to be at that point. And I think Morey gives him a legitimate chance. But with the Flyers, like you mentioned, they don't have the one guy. I mean, they do have the goalie, right? I mean, the first time since Hextall, they have an actual goalie that is a difference maker. And I mean, in hockey, all it takes is for one goalie to stay on their head, and go on a little bit of a run. So, and ultimately, hockey is one sport where you can get in as an 8 seed and possibly win the whole thing. Like in basketball, you have to have the superstar. The Heat thing was such BS last year. Like if they had to go on the road and they had to travel, that team's not sniffing a finals. So that was just a bubble championship anyway. Like with hockey, I mean, the 1 seed doesn't always win, but for me, it comes down to, can Embiid be the best player in a championship team? Is the league still trending so far away from the big man that he's great, but is it just going to be pointless? Is it going to be like a running back in football? Is it going to be like Saquon Barkley? Is Ben going to take the next step forward? I don't know. So I would still say that. I would still say the Flyers, and it's weird. It feels like they have a bunch of dudes, but not like a dude. Like Giroux used to be, but he's old now. He was pretty ineffective in the playoffs. Kevin Hayes is like a fun little Keith Primo kind of player. And then they have a bunch of good young guys, but how good are they? But ultimately, Carter Hart's the guy.
Well, Mike will tell you. I thought they did everything. I can't say enough good about what I thought Hextall did in his tenure. I thought that they did. Talk about doing more with less. Again, not having sold off. They did a tremendous job building a very, very good talent development system and a farm system that is going to start bearing some fruit. But having said all that, you don't look at that and say, oh, there's my superstar, there's my cornerstone guy. And even the guys that have been brought up, I don't know that Konechny is first-line player. I'm not taking that from him, but I don't think he's a franchise winger. And I look at it and I say, Couturier's probably there as a center, but he's also getting up towards 29 now, and you have concerns about that. And then you have Claude, and Claude's here for maybe, I think, 2 more years, and then you'd have to fill that spot in Voracek's whatever. You see right there, but
not a Voracek fan.
I know you're not. Actually,
it's diehard Flyers fans don't like Voracek. It's hilarious.
I don't know. He's very stale to me. He's very stale. I don't know.
But this is
pass. It's all he does.
When the Flyers traded JVR for Luke Shen, and I killed that deal as rightfully so, Mike did point a knife at me at dinner.
I did.
This is true. This actually happened. And now
I'm very pissed off because the Flyers should have Patrick Kane, and I still say it to this day that draft, it was salt in the wound because he should be a Flyer and they should have multiple cups at this point. Because it's the only draft in history that they decided to change it for not having the worst record in the league. It's unbelievable.
They changed this one. Worked out fine for me.
I know. Great.
Well, it's only been 15 years. I'm glad to see you haven't gotten over it. What year was that? Was that 06?
2008.
I don't care.
I think it was 07, 08.
And then we get the second pick, and it was JVR that year.
Listen, I love not getting over things from a decade ago. I still hate Adam Eaton. I still love booing Adam Eaton when he got his ring. There's no more proud Philly memory for me than booing Adam Eaton when the Phillies won the World Series. We don't forget anything. We don't. There's no city in the world that is better at not forgetting anything than Philadelphia.
If you were driving down Broad Street and Joe Carter was walking across the street, would you hit the brake on your car?
No, I'd hit him.
I don't even know, man. I wasn't even born when Joe Carter hit the home run. So, honestly,
Jesus, how young are you?
I'm 26. I am glad I'm glad I wasn't alive for 93. As big a Phillies guy as I am, if I had to watch that team get to the World Series, and not only that, but no one talks about the 14-8 blown lead, which is insane. It was the 7th inning. How do you not hold that lead? I mean, I know you're not bringing up bad memories, but
bad memories.
And then Joe Carter, it's just this is awful. I'm so glad I was not alive. I'm so glad I was barely alive for Rondé Barber. I mean, I remember it. It was the first time I was ever angry at a Philly sports thing. I didn't know why.
It's funny you mentioned that because I do have the.
Oh, there it is.
I do have the play.
The game was over anyway. I think the Rondé Barber pick is a little overrated by people.
I completely agree with you. The game was over, but it's it's that moment that you remember that elicits that emotional reaction of the way that the place just died. And I remember that game
I might steal that take, honestly. I might steal that and use it on the air. So if you hear me say on the air that the Rondé Barber pick was overrated, it's because of this conversation.
Listen, that's okay. Listen, you have free range to use anything, any which way you want to. But it's so true. And for that game, I think, Mike, I told you the story. I was in New York for a Rangers Flyers game that day, and I'm watching that NFC title game in Penn Station. And when he picked that ball off, the place just erupted because everybody obviously hates the Eagles because they're in New York. But they were down 10 points with 3 minutes to go. Like, okay, were you going to come back? Probably not. So,
you never know. I mean,
yeah, but that's not where you lost.
Listen, I was season ticket holder with my father. Last game at the Vet. I think the whole thing was Brian Mitchell runs that ball back.
Right.
You're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's set up. The whole thing is set up. Last game at the Vet, and then you're walking out with your tail between your legs. Yeah. And that's it. I say you could hear a pin drop at the end of that walk out. It was done. It was the worst feeling I've ever had as a sports fan.
Two things. One, the Bucks can't win in the cold, obviously.
Of course.
And two, I don't know if it's all his fault, but I would like to blame it all on Ike Reese. I think it's all Ike's fault why they did not win that game.
Do you tell him that when you see him? Do you tell him that every day? Like, hey, Ike.
Most of the time. I have drops on our board from I've one from the Super Bowl where it's Chris Collinsworth and Ike, I guess, looked the wrong way with Brady, and it's like Collinsworth goes out and Tom Brady looks off Ike Reese, and then I have another one where in the 4th and 26 game, like Ahmad Bradshaw was just running, all day long. And I have a cut of, I think it was Collinsworth again saying they're really starting to go after Ike Reese now. So we have some fun with it for sure.
No, that's so cool. We've done a lot of sports talk tonight, but I want our viewers, all 13,000 of them, our followers on our Facebook page, talk a little about the podcast that you're on. I know you do High Hopes, Art of the Take. Just tell our guys, A, where to find them, but B, like, what are they looking at when they get to your podcast?
You can find, we actually just changed over RSS feeds. So we went from a different platform to another platform, and like the latest High Hopes was not in people's feeds, which wasn't great. But High Hopes is just like, it's me and James Seltzer, who produces the midday show at WIP, and it's just like it's two guys that absolutely think about the Phillies all day, every day, and we call ourselves diseased Phillies fans because I think diehard gets overused a little bit. It's like anyone can be a diehard football fan. There's one game a week. Like, cool. Congrats on watching every Eagles game since you were 12. Like, I don't care. But like diseased is like you're into it. You're watching especially like Phillies and baseball. It's like a day-to-day grind. It's just us, during the season we do two podcasts a week. Sometimes we have guests on the off season, but really it's just us having a good time. And, I think our listeners, I like to think that they laugh during it, but, and then Art of the Take, I don't know how to explain the Art of the Take. The Art of the Take is crazy. We don't do it that much anymore just because when I moved up to afternoons, we had a nice set schedule where once a week I would come for Giglio's show and we recorded it. So we recorded like maybe like 3 times now every 6 months. So, but it originally was just kind of explaining what we do and trying to explain takes and the importance of takes. And, there's been so much like take shaming. It's bad to have opinions on sports, or as Twitter is just going to get a Twitter mob on you. That's
what Giglio does.
Yeah. So we perfected it. And we read takes, we go over takes, and just it's a really dumb, fun podcast when we do it. But we don't do it as often as we probably should.
And I mentioned it before the show. So we've had Joe Giglio on the show. That was a lot of fun. Being that the two of you have such opposite takes on the quarterback situation in Philadelphia, like, do you ever feel like the urge to like clothesline him in the hallway at WIP, or do you just like?
Especially when you see Giglio, like he's just such a little guy, that it's like, I can't believe you're the guy. No, honestly, like the funniest part about WIP is like we all genuinely like each other, and we'd noticed Joe will get like crushed on Twitter or on the show, and
Right.
like we'll just bring it up to him and he'll have fun with it, and like he doesn't really care. And like when him and Ike start yelling at each other, like they'll start yelling, and then off the mic they'll just start laughing because it's just like we're just having fun talking about sports, and working on his show is a lot of fun. So I sometimes I just shake my head, when I come out, I'll see him sitting there, usually eating like a quinoa salad, and I'll be like you did it again. You had to do it. You had to go there, and so we have fun with it for sure.
Don't tell Joe, but when we had Joe on the show, he didn't even have his camera on.
Yeah.
So he was walking. I think he was walking to work actually. No camera on. He was just all you hear was his voice. Unbelievable.
What a disaster.
How's it like working with Spike?
With Ike or Spike?
Spike.
Spike's great. Spike's an awesome boss. He's funny. He understands, like, Spike's really good at the whole big picture thing and just seeing where the show is going. And he's really good at, if we're struggling to kind of figure out where we want to go, he'll come in, know where Ike is, know where John is, and try to figure out how to get them where he needs them to be. And ultimately, he's very fair. And it's funny, just kind of like he's like my boss, but also my friend. So
yeah,
like it's just a fun dynamic. But overall, just a super like crazy smart guy at this.
Right.
So it's a fun time.
Awesome, man.
So I guess my last question before I hand it over to Mike to finish up. So you're a Phillies guy first, is what I've gathered from our conversation today. So I guess from a I hate this team standpoint, is that the Mets for you?
I don't think I'll ever hate a team as much as I hated the 07 to 11 Mets. Like I hated that team so much. But honestly, like we haven't had a good rivalry in forever. Like people talk about the Cowboys, and it's like, yeah, I understand we have to hate the Cowboys thing, and rightfully so. I mean,
I get it.
They're the worst. But
yeah,
like for me, growing up, it was the Giants. Like I hated the Giants way more than I hated the Cowboys because it was like Amani Toomer, Strahan, Shockey, Seahorn. Like just awful Giants teams, and the Cowboys sucked. Like the first Cowboy I even remember was like Quincy Carter.
Yeah.
It's like what am I supposed to do with Quincy Carter? Like these guys stink.
Yeah.
Like Vinny Testaverde. It's like what?
It's funny. Like they get those Browns jerseys, all the quarterback. You could do a Cowboys one too. Like people forget about that, but like you could do a Cowboys one with just like horrific quarterback that they had between Aikman and Romo that are just like a disaster.
Honestly, though, it's probably the Braves at this point for me, just because, like, dude, Freddie Freeman is unbelievable, and like they can't get him out in any big moment. Brian McCann was horrible when he went back there like 2 years ago, and he still hit a walk-off against the Phillies. Hate that dude. Like Dansby Swanson, not a fan. Like they're a very annoying team. So and they always kill the Phillies. Like I hate talented players that kill the Phillies like Freddie Freeman. So I'll say the Braves at this point.
Fair.
Obviously, I would think you got into radio because of something. Name me one person that if you had to listen to one person on the radio, who would it be? Like for your money, if you had to listen to one person on the radio day in and day out, who would it be?
That's great. It's tough because like, you think about the shows, you think about like Glenn and Ray, and like if I had to choose a show,
even nationally.
Oh, it'd probably be Coward. I like listening to Coward. People rip on Coward, but he's like a genius at, again, like he just knows how to needle Philly, and it's like he doesn't work here, never worked here. But somehow just has an innate ability to like.
He likes Wentz though. He always backs Wentz.
Yeah. He likes Wentz. He thinks Eagles fans are dumb for not liking Wentz, which I think is funny.
I'm not an Eagles fan. I've born and raised in this area. He's the least of their problems. I mean, I understand like it's not working right now, but like this was a moment in time in a weird year for everybody in the country and the world. Like the idea that they would somehow like fix their cap problems by getting rid of him. I don't get it. I would do obscene things to get him in Dallas. I would. He's
untradeable. I mean, like he's $60 million in dead cap. Like he's not going anywhere. no matter if you guys want to get rid of him or not. Like he's not going anywhere. But Coward for me, like very good at this, and just it would be like interesting. Just if I could only listen to him, I would like study him and try to replicate it.
Awesome, man.
Well, listen, we really appreciate taking the time, Jack Fritz, WIP. Hopefully, in the not too distant future, maybe get your own time slot. That'd be pretty cool if we could hear you on the radio too.
Sounds fun to me.
If I can write a letter or give a recommendation, feel free. I'll happily send you a nicely handwritten letter so it has some weight. But on behalf of the Sports Box, thank you so much for taking the time. Red carpet is all yours. Everyone to come back on, let us know whenever you'd like to, for sure.
All right. Sounds good, guys. A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Man.
Take care. Jack Fritz. That was a lot of fun. His takes are spot on. Again, I've grown up in this area. I understand Philadelphia fan mindset very, very well. And it's crazy because like he was agreeing with everything I say. You know what I say. I mean, tanking is if you're not going to win, lose, and you'd rather have the pick than make the play.
And I told you before he came on, he agreed with a lot of what you said.
Yeah.
I listen to him a lot on the radio because as a producer, he talks a lot on the radio, which you don't hear from a lot of producers who talk on the radio.
Yeah.
He joins Ike and Johnny Marks on the radio. So I hear him a lot. That's why I wanted him to come on here, and he was very willing to do that for us. And he's very good at what he does.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed talking to him, even though he didn't like my hat or my banners behind me.
You got
So I obviously appreciate that. Obviously, also our best wishes to Paul McCree, who's under the weather. Hopefully he feels better for next week's edition of Unsportsmanlike Conduct. I'll be back on tomorrow night with Mike Galletta on Highly Opinionated Show, breaking down last week in the NFL. We have the NBA draft preview and free agency preview on Wednesday with Tony and Paulie Scoops on Baseline Jumper. I'm guessing there's a green room show. Maybe there's a green room show. I don't know.
No idea.
They like to do shows whenever they want to. They kind of like, yeah, we'll do it this week. No, we're not going to do it this week. No, whatever. So,
yeah.
But anyway, on behalf of the boys, guys, thanks so much for watching the show tonight. Just a real quick shout out to our friends over at CrowdPlay. Check out their app. It is phenomenal. It's free to play. Download it on Apple's App Store, Google Play. Here's a little more information about those guys. CrowdPlay, check it out. Last and final thought from you, Mr. Velarde.
No, it was a good show. A lot of ranging topics tonight. Missed Paulie on the show. Wishing him the best, and love talking sports. It's a good show tonight.
We have a lot of fun on this network. Make sure you're following us on Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube. Join Outside the Box, our sports discussion group, over 4,200 members strong. I haven't even had to moderate it that much. Every so often I delete a post, but people are pretty good, the guys that we have in there. So on behalf of Mike Velarde, I am Brian Attard. Thank you for watching our special edition with Jack Fritz from WIP, and we will catch you on the flip side.
The guests just keep coming.
That's it. Listen, we have a detailed list on this network. I'll tell you that. Take care.
Thank you for watching the Sports Box. Follow us on Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our friends at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 points. See you next time.